Laura,
Thank you.
I'm thrilled to have you here. Um, I would love to know if you could give us a brief, for those who don't already know, if you could give a brief introduction to who you are after Fringe and Tiff. Have you already introduced yourselves? Not yet, right?
No, we just transitioned right over. So we'll go ahead and let Laura take it away.
So, Laura,
Awesome. Mm.
if you if you could give a brief introduction to who you are, and I'm particularly interested in what your thoughts are around what's going on now, especially regarding the Epstein files, where we are in the environment of disclosure, and maybe even what your thoughts are on war. Um, if that sounds good to you, if that sounds like a
I'll
good
talk
place
about
to start.
anything. Absolutely. Yeah, I'm open to any questions and wherever this goes. So, yeah, I guess a few words about me. I I've just always been aware of some sort of I don't know. I use the word mission, calling, the need to be really aware of what was going on in my environment because I was targeted pretty early on. And this traces back to Eisenhower's administration and some things that I've found out along the way. So I've been connecting a lot of dots and gaining a greater understanding of events that took place during Eisenhower's administration, who's my great grandfather, and why I was targeted, how that relates to what's going on in the larger picture. So I've really uh, I've dug real deep, or I'm like digging real deep into galactic history, how DNA relates to astrology and the planetary grid network, where the manipulations have taken place, how that's showing up, and what this shift is all about. The alchemical laws of creation, the 13th sign, and this, ascension window. What is it all about? What does it mean? What is disclosure? What is needing to be disclosed? What have I discovered along the way has been something I've, been passionate about sharing and listening to others to see, how we can be a part of these greater conversations to navigate the madness together and reach a better sort of existence on a global scale.
Laura,
You there? Okay.
the yeah, sorry about the delay. Um, if you were going to start from the beginning, if we go all the way back to Eisenhower, can you take me through the significance of um, how you view bloodlines and how it relates to different beings here on the political stage? A lot of people here are deeply familiar with your work, and some people aren't going to be familiar at all. Is that okay?
Right.
Could you sort of take me through a linear timeline?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So, I mean, bloodlines, if you're talking about like 13 families, Illuminati, banksters, presidents that have been groomed by three-letter organizations. I don't know how careful I need to be anymore in
Well,
this world.
can
I'm just
we
like,
can we start with just yours? I mean, yours is
yeah,
incredibly
absolutely.
interesting.
Yeah, definitely. So not your typical sort of what people would associate with the presidential bloodline. That changed a lot after Eisenhower's presidency. Um, into more of this sort of cabal owned, socially engineered society, getting more and more kind of infiltrated by leadership that was very much, controlled. And when I say controlled, we're talking like alters, Manchurian candidates, sleeper agents, and just this whole sort of takeover that, Eisenhower bloodline doesn't carry. So the lineage goes back to like German descent, Dutch, German, Anabaptist, Mennonite, moved to Pennsylvania. Eisenhower was raised a farm boy, very what some would call poor, but in their eyes they were abundant. Very strict religious family, and Eisenhower and all of his brothers, there's like seven of them, kind of stepped away from the I think the super super, super strict aspects of it. I mean, Ida, Eisenhower's mother, cried when she discovered he was going to go to West Point and pursue the path that he pursued because they were pacifists. They didn't believe in war. So, really humble backgrounds, no trust funds. People think or assume because I'm raised in a presidential family that that must come with wealth that they're associating with what you would see in other kind of bloodlines, and or a presidential family that, one might assume would have resources passed down to the next generation. Um, and that was just not the case. We've all been very close. We've all helped each other in times of need, but we've all had to work very, very hard. And this is part of the family value system. This is how Eisenhower was raised. It was important for his legacy, and he encouraged that. He was very much a family man, just a really beautiful soul in so many ways. Oh, it's okay. So I just learned a lot about him. Yeah, I mean, growing up, my grandfather, Eisenhower's son, uh, he was very close to me. We visited him all the time. My grandmother as well. They had gotten a divorce later on, but very close family. Julie Nixon married David Eisenhower. So my aunt is Julie Nixon, Nixon's daughter, and she married David Eisenhower. So the four grandkids. My mom's one of them. So she basically raised me, and she legally changed my name to Eisenhower. And I think she kind of was like, why did I do that? Because look at her out there talking about all this stuff. And so it kind of had to skip a generation. It was not safe for this level of disclosure to happen in my mom's generation and my aunts and uncles. Doesn't mean that they don't know stuff, but the threat of death and the things that took place in 1952, where we actually unconditionally surrendered to the Nazis, the interplanetary corporate conglomerate, took place. And this is stuff I'm finding out as time has rolled on in the last couple of years. So, take what resonates, see where it fits in with what, you've discovered along the way. I say this to the audience, but it makes a whole lot of sense, especially when, one sees the amount of rumors that have been spread surrounding Eisenhower and the Greada Treaty, and so many whistleblowers and insiders. I wouldn't say so many, but to me, three is a lot. For me, it's like, okay, even one person in the wealth of knowledge and information they have can feel like you're talking to 10 people because of their experience. And he's become a really, really strong advocate, and he's just worked very closely with me just to get the truth out. He has immunities and never signed an NDA. His name is Dan Cooper. He's a physicist. And anyway, so he's helped me really understand what took place in Eisenhower's administration and the false narratives and the trillions of dollars, millions of dollars that they have spent to disparage him, make him look bad, make it look like he made deals. And he said, "You're the living proof. You were raised in this family. Are you sitting on any, council where you have access to alien technology? Is there any remnants of that kind of truth that you've ever noticed in your family growing up?" And I said, "Well, no." He's like, "Well, if treaties were really signed and there were technology exchanges, you'd be in a very, very, different place." So in fact, Eisenhower put countermeasures in place we can get into. But yeah, I think the most important takeaway is very, very humble background. Um, and he's just, yeah, the memories that the family, share of their time with him, the amount of time my mom actually spent at the White House, and just how it was never about sort of this elitist mentality. Even when you were put in that kind of position of power, how much it was about humanity, how much these values, were passed down, and just everybody's so down to earth. And so I was targeted in a different way than any other family member. I mean, I'm sure everybody, I think the whole human race is targeted. So to varying degrees, depending. But when they realized that I was going through this and it was happening outside of the family, this attention, being placed on me, this is when I really started to go down the rabbit holes, and it was not the easiest thing to talk about. So I kept trying to open up the conversation to talk about UFOs, to talk about Val Thor, to talk about the Greys, and yeah, I remember my mom one time saying, she's like, "Oh, those are all rumors." And I'm like, "Well, would she know or would she not know?" So I don't wait for family to say this or that. I know that they're very sincere. They live in a high level of integrity. They work really, really hard. They have incredible missions in their own right. in their own path and journey, and also books written about Eisenhower and the family. And but this is just what I was born into um, to explore. And what I found out was Eisenhower was briefed that a descendant would come in and help complete what he couldn't. And they intercepted that information, and that's why I was targeted. They targeted me in numerous ways, but that's a whole other thing. I'll take a breath and let you, ask questions, because I know anybody who's listened to me, I can just go on and I could talk fast and go off on tangents. Um, so getting to know, just Eisenhower, and then my agreements with him and my deeper relationship with him. Yeah, he just loves humanity. I just feel like he reminds me of what a global family we are and what it means to be in service. And that's always in my heart anyway. But the fact that he stood for that, and he knew it wasn't going to be about the government structure, and warned us about the military industrial complex, and it was about all of us rising up and for remembering who we truly are, which are other communications that I've received over the course of time. Um, yeah, I feel really confident about the future because of the countermeasures, because of all of us working together, and the insights that he shared, and what I found out about the Guardians, and the temporal management that has corrected timeline manipulations, and all these different things that we might not see in the here and now that are taking place, that are creating restoration. Guardian souls that are here doing grid work. We're in a much more multidimensional landscape. It's always been multidimensional, but been more hidden, been more distorted, with seals and fences and the net, being placed over this planet to kind of keep us in this 3D mindset. But that's all shifting and changing, and that alone is enough to protect our future and timeline. And because the timeline exists within us, it's just a matter of cutting the cords and removing ourselves from where the harvesting and siphoning is using that energy to battery up these artificial timelines. So it's very trying times, and I know it's hard to know what's going to happen from one day to the next. But the most important thing is that we stay centered in that. And because dark agendas only thrive when there's fragmentation and trauma loops and all these different tactics to keep that alive is what keeps the deep state functioning. When we repair that within ourselves and as a community, as a global community, that's really what's going to do it at the end of the day. Sitting around waiting for government disclosure, for Trump to have it all figured out. Yeah, we want to see the world stage reflect back to us the progress of our um, us achieving these kind of goals of winning the war on consciousness from within and with each other. But I think that's going to take a little bit of time to catch up. And so there's no time to wait, but to do what we know we can do with one another, because the earth will respond to us. And right now, I just feel it's very easy to get caught in the trauma loops, or to look outside of ourselves to the point where we forget about the priority, what's been targeted, what has been attacked, what is a new loop kind of repeating itself with a different storyline, a new war, a new kind of, and what we don't know and what we do know, and can we accept that and continue to thrive, because that's everything, moving through this critical time intact, because it's very easy to want to fall apart or give up, or feel exhausted, or what's the point, or hold on to a belief system and attach to it, and then find that might not be true, and then where do you land? So it's pretty intense right now, I know it.
Laura, you cover so much. I'd like to go. I wrote a few things down as you were going over everything, and I just want to let's take it Blues Clues level. Talk to me like I'm five and
Blues
really
Clues.
stupid. Yeah,
Oh, that's
like really, just like take your time here. And I know we don't have that much time. You mentioned you had about 2 hours from 6 p.m. Eastern, so that leaves us about 90 minutes. Um, if we don't solve all of the world's problems in the next 90 minutes, I'll get over it. I want us all to sit back and relax, because you're a wealth of information, and I'd like for us to go deep wherever the most interesting area is. And I just want to cover a few things that I just have a few clarifying questions on, if that's okay.
totally.
Um, and welcome. And sorry, we're coming off of the heels of the other space. I expected we would have like 1 or 2 hours. I didn't think we would be going straight from one to the next one.
Oh,
And
I'm sorry about last time. We were scheduled for last week, so nothing to.
yeah, but
It's more my.
but
Yeah,
that stuff happens. That's okay. Like it's not a big deal.
yeah.
Um, so there's something that keeps on coming up, and that's this idea of countermeasures. Um, and forgive me if some of my questions are really simplistic. Uh, Countermeasures. Explain to me what countermeasures were put in place and why.
Okay, so when we talk about ET technology exchanges, human abductions, how that's changed and shifted over time. Um, Now it's a lot about the three-letter organizations and about military abductions and even creating grays and underground bases that aren't real aliens. This weaponization of uh, pretty much everything, our good intent, all the things that we see streaming through the pillars of society when a psyop or a false flag or a um, indoctrination program is launched, as we know. That's the real war right now. So tracing back to when the abduction scenarios took place, that actually began in 1929, and many sources speak on this. So Dan Cooper, Ashiana Dien, Keelantic Science, Phil Schneider. I mean, there's a long list of individuals. I believe Alex Collier, and I'll just leave it at that. I don't want to misname or say the wrong name connected to this, but those are the ones yes. So in 1929, the Nazis signed agreements with the Galactic Federation of Planets and with the inhabitants of Mars so that they can build colonies on the moon and Mars, which they did. Later on in the Eisenhower administration, they
Can
presented three
you,
alternate.
Laura? Can you slow down a little bit there?
Mm-hmm.
This might be new for people. Just give me the transition. How do we get from Nazis to Galactic Confederation of Light?
So people feel that there's a new Galactic Federation that's not
And
connected to
and take
deep
your
state.
time,
Yeah,
Laura. Like take all the time in the world.
yeah. And I'm going to keep it kind of, simple and brief on this because there's Galactic Federation of Planets, Galactic Federation of Light, Galactic Federation of Worlds, and people who speak on behalf of these federations that are channelers or who feel that they're part of that council or connect with them. I feel it's a mixed bag. Dan Cooper says it's all the same. They're all three the same. They're all connected to deep state. But that doesn't mean to like undermine or say that what somebody's channeling isn't legit, because I just don't think it's that cut and dry. There could be different factions and different levels of all this, and that's kind of what I'm getting. But I just wanted to start with technology exchanges and ET connections started as early as 1929. If we trace it back to our deeper galactic history, then we realize, oh, there's always been an ET involvement to a certain degree. Yes, there's prime directive. Yes, there's the non-intervention, and that is very key. So when we reached warp 1, that's when ET groups knew that we had advanced enough on a technological level to begin to connect with us. So, and then you've got these dark agendas that are really about exploitation of the human race, whatever agreements they made. This all carries over, right? So we're going through the Second World War. This is kind of in the background. The formation of these three-letter organizations in MJ12 after 1947, Project Paperclip. But what is not discussed is what happened in 1952, which Dan Cooper brings a lot of information about. That's when the UFOs flew over the Capitol. And anyway, so the countermeasures. Eisenhower comes into office in 1953. 1954, he's blamed for signing some kind of treaty with the Greys. And those treaties, in and of itself, even if he did sign them, aren't like horrible. You could see why somebody might be duped, but it's very questionable that it even happened, right? And I always felt that way. And so sound bites have been taken from me and spread far and wide saying that Eisenhower signed treaties, and it just blows my mind that that would go viral. And all that I've written, all the articles, my book, barely gets anywhere. And that's part of, their hope is in monitoring this and spending a lot of money to hide all of this, is to keep this from our awareness. These countermeasures have to do with how to take down the deep state and the ICC, interplanetary corporate conglomerate, Nazi Draco agenda that went off planet. So this is the deep state that we're dealing with. And sometimes, the whole Nazi thing or Zionist thing gets confusing, to people. So I don't want to get too much into that. But, when we're talking about timeline manipulation, this goes way back 26,000 years. The planetary grid network. They manipulated the planetary grid network with dark reversal technology in order to be able to create, timelines that would continue to harvest and utilize our energies. And that's why there's rituals and worship of Baal and Moloch and sacrifices in order to keep this vampiric system alive. So Eisenhower, realizing this, and this infiltration taking place in 1952, the failed Admiral Byrd mission in 1947 to Antarctica, then paperclip, all around the same time. And then 1952, the ultimate surrender. Well, Eisenhower was the last presidency that was dealing with this, takeover. And what happened was 30 levels of top secret went above the president. He began to lose control. He had the help of Val Thor to help him navigate this. But he began to lose control. So Richard Dolan interviewed somebody named Anonymous, and Eisenhower wanted to invade Area 51. Dan Cooper tells me that Eisenhower ordered an invasion on Dulce underground base in 1954 to try and take out the Greys and the Dracos, but they lost that battle. That's when he really began to, realize what he was up against. So anyway, I wasn't there. It's tough to go down a lot of these rabbit holes and hear this and hear that, and I only want the truth. Even if Eisenhower made mistakes, it's like, okay, well, we're all learning and growing and trying to figure out what the heck's going on here. But after meeting Dan and his explanation of what happened in 1952, a year before Eisenhower became president, it's like Eisenhower inherited this dilemma. And being a person that wasn't going to be controlled and operated by the deep state, or coerced or bribed or threatened to play on their team, he began to put countermeasures in place. One was called Ike's Force. Ike's Force is the USMC Special Section, United States Military. It's a special section of that military. And basically, they're like vigilantes. They don't work as a group. And they work with the timeline corrections. And they also just are given missions. He also seated the White Hats. Are you still there?
I
I'm
am
here.
definitely
I
still
can hear
here,
Okay.
you.
Laura.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
you're good.
okay. And he also seated the White Hats. And I have direct quotes that go into detail about how that all went. I could read. And then Earth Alliance, and he appealed to the Guardians with the help of Valthor. And that's when I guess I've been told that I come into the picture. And it was part of like an agreement of me coming in and a lot of us coming in, and that there would be a migration of souls coming in that would be, you know, strong enough to take down the deep state. And strong enough, it doesn't mean anybody who's captured by them are weak. It just means, it's a potential that exists within all souls to override the social engineering, override the false disclosures, override the false ascension programs, that we would be diligent and we would seek truth and that we would all work together. And it doesn't mean it's just smooth sailing all the time, but it's a commitment. It's a devotion that we carry in our heart and soul. And I can just tell that you and those that are hosting with you and a lot of you listening absolutely carry that. And I think deep down, every human soul carries that. It's just some, you know, might wake up to their mission and have no choice but to face it, because they'll make sure certain scenarios take place in order to, give them, that awakening and that nudge. Others that don't, still have the opportunities. It's just sometimes they require, somebody to activate them or help them through maybe generations of trauma-based mind control or religious programs, or just, they might be a little bit more embedded, but it's not about hierarchy. It's not about better or worse. It's just a necessity. It's sort of like, if we're sick, our immune system needs to function in order for, things to come back into homeostasis. It's a part of the organic creation and how it corrects itself. The planetary alignments, everything that's going on is healing its own planetary system. And so humanity's healing. So, I don't like to talk about me and like, okay, remote viewers or psychics or shamans or whatever have said this throughout my life. And there's something I've known deep down in me, but it's like, great, we're all galactic. We all have that kind of thing. But I think this is where, because I've been told by different people throughout my life that don't even know each other about, them wanting me to come in, and him knowing about it and being briefed and that being intercepted was why I was targeted before birth. And they tried to get me on a different timeline. So something was very strengthened in me to know this from the beginning and to, fight that much harder and be that much more on top of it and aware of what the heck was going on. A lot to share there. But anyway, so, when we look at the government, there's still the belief that something outside of us is going to rescue and save us, and we all know that. It's very cliche at this point, but it really is us. And that's what I came in knowing, and I was given a lot of guidance in the very beginning. I always had, all these downloads and just this awareness. Um, and sometimes it's not as close to me as I would like, and sometimes it won't leave me alone when I'd like a break. you know, um, but it's just there. Um, it's taken a bunch of hits, so I'm not maybe where I'd like to be, just in my own embodiment, I guess you could say. I'm still healing a lot. But this is the process. And this is,
Well, may I
what.
ask, and it's okay if you don't want to say, but what do you mean when you say you're still healing a lot? Do you mean psychologically some sort of trauma, or do you mean physically? Because I have to say, mentally, I wish I could be as sharp as you. You're, what if there was some sort of coffee that they could come out with, like I'm blown away by the energy that you have,
Oh my God,
and
well,
that's
that's
only
nice.
a compliment. That's only a good thing. I I
You're sweet.
feel I feel geriatric, just trying to keep up with you.
Oh, you're so
So
funny. Oh my gosh.
what do you mean by in terms of your healing, you're not really there, and only whatever you feel comfortable sharing?
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, there's a lot of dots to connect, right? And sometimes I'm like not feeling as articulate as I could, and I just wish I could express what I, understand, but at the same time, ah, I mean, I like to just keep it in the simplicity, because it's like there's enough that is known as far as a dark agenda, right? Um, I have enough I can piece together and articulate to, yeah, I hopefully, reach the audience as far as,
Oh,
dark
I
agendas.
don't have
They're
enough, Laura. Like, I'm still trying to piece together the dark agenda. I mean, I want to hear all of the light agenda as well, but if you know the whole dark agenda, please unleash it on us, because it's it's been difficult for me to figure out, if I'm being
right.
honest with you.
Well, it's so ancient is the thing, and we're a free will universe, and so it's sort of been this process of fragmentation back to wholeness. So if we look at the micro world compared to the macro, it's really no different. When we're fragmented or in a trauma loop, sometimes energy vampires want to take advantage. Even when we're feeling really, really good, sometimes that's when the biggest manipulators show up because they want to steal that light. Unfortunately, we're in that kind of world where we learn that there's darkness, there's evil, there's energy vampires, there's parasitic dark agendas that operate in that kind of way, and towards a planet, towards a human race that lost their capacity to hold 12 strand and beyond. And to go into the root of it all, I don't think anybody can fully, explain, because of the way we have experienced it ourselves, or the way we work with languaging or in perception. So I try and find, like, you know, the most common ground, to be able to, maybe express it. Some might be like Luciferian rebellion, or the reptilians attacked Lyra. And I mean, we can get as much information as we possibly can and trace it back, which is helpful. But the most important thing to walk away with is that, um, the difference between service to self, service to others, vampiric, parasitic, fallen, and you know, higher density beings that got kind of infiltrated and engineered or modified, right, over the course of time by these fallen groups. So when we are in the higher dimensional earth energies, you know, higher dimensional energies, earth energies being Lyra, dimensions 10, 11, 12, then you got, you know, just this whole 12 strand DNA that connects with these different harmonic universes. The whole process of awakening dormant DNA is to return us to those higher earths. And because there was war, because the galactic wars and the things that stepped us down into this lower density happened, as we begin to switch it on, we sort of move through those levels and layers, which can be very traumatic and difficult because there's no framework. We don't go to the doctor and find out, oh yeah, you're just remembering, you know, when Tiamat exploded or when you were in the Orion Wars. We don't talk like that in society. Now there's a lot more, you know, hypnoregression, QHHT type people or people that, you know, tap into the Akashic. But then, you know, is that energy coming in completely clear? Uh, so we have to have discernment, right? So we're working with our own truth within ourselves, connected to our nervous system of knowing when something feels good and feels right versus something that feels really off. Well, sometimes we adapt to things that we want to hear because it makes us feel better, and we reject things that are, you know, so is that intuition? Is it coming from just, I don't know. There's a lot of healing the human race is going through. And right now, these imposter energies, these dark agendas have found a way, and this has been going on for a while, to present themselves as light and dupe and trick. And it's no different in the micro world of having, you know, somebody you might fall for who's a narcissist or an abuser who charms, you know, I mean, we want to take it into the micro and learn as much as we possibly can in our own human experiences to understand the larger picture. Because a lot of the modification, a lot of the DNA manipulation, a lot of the programs that have been installed are to keep us in a place where we're easily controlled and ruled. Because vampiric energies need to feed. They've lost connection to divine source, so they need to plug into something in order to extract light, kundalini, or like anything that can sustain them. And so they've used technology as a means to do this. Planetary stargates and ley lines and just all sorts of advanced technologies that are able to actually manipulate planetary energies as well. So 26,000 years ago or so, the dark reversal grid technologies, basically putting things in reversal, meant that humans would be born, they would age, have a lifespan far, far less than what we could really have. And we'd be born with amnesia and in this sort of reversal energy that is kept alive through programmings. So the biggest target is the masculine and feminine within ourselves. That's why this gender confusion is like their next wave of like capturing a you know, creating a psyop to capture and hijack, you know, maybe a soul who connects with both, and it's perfectly fine. Doesn't need to be confusing, because there's a massive deprogramming happening. So they keep trying to capture and hijack what's organically taking place. And that's where the big distractions are, like, because it's happening regardless. Question is, do we allow our energy and attention to get caught in the net of deception and false flags and psyops and social engineering? And this goes way back, and it also connects with the Earth grids. So because our DNA is connected with the planetary grid network, the original planetary grids, um, you know, have not been something we've been born into without this distortion field that, you know, captures us. So there's different areas, you know, on the planet, particularly the Michael Mary lines, where the grid energies of the masculine and feminine, that sacred union, was unplugged. Where the 11th gate is, the Stonehenge area, that's where the Niberian diotic crystal grid manipulative technologies were put in. The Nephilim reversal grid, right? And then we have the 10th gate, the Iran-Iraqi border. So these planetary gateways connect with our DNA, connect with the planetary grids. So humans get caught in the reversal grid network energy when they get infiltrated by programmings. When people get ill and get a disease, they give that power away to the doctor. Not to say that there aren't good doctors out there, but I'm just saying that it doesn't bring one closer to oneself like it could, where all these adversities and diseases could be an opportunity to find out where's the programming, what is the ancestral um, imprint, where is the trauma that has not been brought to the surface, where are the hidden gifts and abilities. And then, when we do that and understand we're elemental beings and the nucleic acids of our DNA are elemental, we begin to get closer to who we are. Everything in the system is to kind of take us further away. Not to say that there aren't incredible soul-centered people in the highest of integrity doing the best they can do in the field that they went to school for. But when you see a psyop or a false flag hit, it's amazing how the pillars of society are allowing it to stream through them, and they feel that their hands are tied and they have no choice. So the governments are no different. The entertainment industry is no different. The medical industry, the educational systems are no different. So where are these dark vampiric forces? There's underbellies and swamps to be drained everywhere. Um, and, once we can spot it and begin to dismantle it fully and uh, move our energy away from it hooking into us, that's how it collapses. So, the dark mother reversal grid and all this reversal energy has basically created this kind of 1% kind of, the controllers, the hierarchy of the system. Some see it as our great enemy. Other people like attach themselves to it and are still kind of caught in it. And the pit, the divide and conquer agendas play out through that, through, Republican, Democrat, what religion are you, and it doesn't have to be like that. It doesn't have to be like that, but all of that is crumbling, right? So, I look at it like we're going through a massive divorce. With the old system is a vampiric force connected to negative ETs, whatever, connected to human hybrids that have formed alliances and agreements. And to me, when humanity recognizes that you can cut the cords and break up with that in order to experience true love and the true essence of creation, then everything really gets easier, because we realize it was always inside of us. Every life lesson, every adversity, every dis-ease is seeking to help us to uncover that. Everything happening on the planet is seeking to help us get to a deeper level so that we can really work on this conflict, this division, this war mentality that is being cast upon us, not something we want, not something we voted for. Okay, well, who are the individuals that are left after the ones that declare unity and victory over the dark forces? Where do they stand? Well, lots of rehabilitation is going to be required for all the damage that's been done. So, to me, when you're looking at Anunnaki or any kind of invading force that has manipulated us, it's to use our energy to create a timeline that benefits them and not us. That's no different than an abusive relationship that's going to treat you, as the kind of person. It doesn't matter if it's male or female. I'm not making generalizations at all, but it's the same kind of mentality, because humans represent these dark agendas without realizing it. In their own unconsciousness, they're running programmings that support inversion, that support the desecration of what's sacred, that support toxicity. And that's exactly what they want. So we got to look at the micro and the macro connection and simply do what it takes to return to that divine blueprint, because that is pre-fall, that is pre-galactic war, that is the truth and essence of what we carry. And it doesn't mean like, some sort of perfection, or it's authenticity, it's truth, it's the willingness to heal, it's the willingness to hold out our traumas and say, this is what I'm working on. It's the end of these facades, and and that's what we're seeing in the world, right? So I would say what I'm having a hard time with is patience, I guess. And I'm like really shy now, like a lot shy, because there's been so much attack where I'm like, I don't even want to put myself out there. And I only have those moments here and there, but I didn't with you, and I don't with, some other people, where it's just like, I'm tired of being a piñata, and Eisenhower being blamed. It's like blaming a firefighter for trying to put out a fire, and blaming him for lighting the fire. And it's just, it's injured our family, I think, in a lot of ways, unconsciously, maybe more with those that don't dive into these subjects. But, you know, to be quoted for this and have that go viral, that I agree with that, when I've always wanted to dig deeper into the truth and have these conversations, and just to just feel more like a laughing stock than somebody, that people see what I'm, trying to do and what I'm up against and how hard it's been. Um, I think there was a period where I noticed that more than the love and support, and when my channels got taken down. So I think I'm kind of recovering from that, and some crazy targeting that wasn't the kind of targeting I'd gone through before, but I was being harassed through the courts, and my father was dying, and he was the closest thing to me. So I'm kind of recovering from like the last couple of years of just feeling like, I don't want to say the word failure because that's a duality I don't agree with. But I just kind of felt like, I don't know if I care to bounce back. It'd just be easy to just run away and live somewhere far, far away. But I just knew that those were moments. And that, yeah, if it makes you feel like that, why don't you just say it publicly? Because, maybe somebody else is feeling that way when you feel really shot down or misunderstood, or you have a really sensitive nature and it's hard to just, find the neutrality. And the thing is, I have had so much neutrality, but some things, when it piles up and your nervous system doesn't have a chance to reset, it's just like debilitating. So I'm kind of recovering from that still. Because I was so exhausted already by the other things that I had overcome, where I'm like, oh, I bet it's going to be a lot lighter now. And then boom, I'm like, so I'm always kind of looking over my shoulder, and I'm just kind of learning, to relax a lot more. But, just like everyone, when you see what's happening on the world stage, and we have it in us to be able to defeat this deep state, but just see all the games still being played, it just sometimes feels really frustrating and sad. But anyway, I'm not going to stop, and I'll always bounce back. I'm really getting well versed at, you know, feeling like I'm at death's door, and just regenerating and coming back to life, and just being like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know about regenerating fully, but enough to clothe myself and get through the day. You guys there?
Uh-oh, Tiff, did we lose Ulrich? I can't hear you, Ulrich. I know you were trying to respond to Laura. Laura, we apologize for super glitchy Spaces. Spaces is fantastic. We love the venue because it's more of a town hall. We get audience participation and such, unlike a podcast where it's just you and the podcaster. But we do get
I'm
a
back
lot
now.
of
Sorry.
glitches here and there. Can you hear me, Tiff, or can anyone hear Ulrich? Is it just
Nope,
me?
I can hear you. I can't hear Ulrich. I heard Laura. She was great. I just have my normal someone talking in my ear.
Okay, I tell you what, while we're waiting for Ulrich, Laura, do you mind entertaining an audience question while we get our host back?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, awesome. Now this is just an audience question. I don't even know what the context is. I'm just going to read it as is. Give me just a second. So this question is, when you get a chance, can you ask how Laura was manipulated and psyoped by the Hal Puthoff group? She's briefly mentioned it on a podcast, and I would appreciate more info. Thank you very
Oh,
much.
yeah. The aviary. Yeah. So, oh my gosh, the Mars thing. So when I was talking about being targeted, it was all connected to that. So the aviary was the name of the group. And basically, I noticed that there was some sort of, attention on me. I didn't have the terminology. I didn't have anything to relate it to. But what I now understand is like psychotropic weapons, and being tracked, and having events be engineered in order to kind of trip me up and to place plants in my life to try and derail me. Um, and that was connected to the aviary. And the aviary, yeah, they're a group of individuals from various backgrounds that show this sort of public, man, because there's so many layers to this. I'll explain first how they came into my life. So I felt this attention on me, or I felt like I just could not create anything without some kind of sabotage, or like everything falling apart. Everything would just fall apart. And I, initially just kind of blamed it on myself, like, okay, well, something's seriously wrong with me. Maybe it's karma. I don't know. And I would stumble into like psychics and healers, and it was almost like, as I was coming up with questions, I would be starting to find answers. But still, nobody could help me. Nobody could help me. There was just this force on me. Even there was one shaman who said, I can't help. When a shaman says they can't help you, it's like, oh, great. All right. I'm like, what's going on? I knew I just had to deal with it on my own. And so I kind of surrendered to the energy that was seeming to control me. And I ended up back in the DC area. I had left California. I was single parenting twins. They were about 8 years old at the time. And so I met this guy at an event. I was finally getting social, and we met in a very organic way. And he was very, very familiar to me. And we really, really hit it off. And I was super excited. But he kept talking about this Mars mission. And he kept referring to Hal Puthoff, and he referred to him as his handler, and all these other names that I still remember: Jack Sarfati, Richard Doty, Chris Green, Ron Pandolfo. Did I say that one? Yeah. Yeah. Da, 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 da. So John Alexander, Pete Peterson, I think it was. Anyway, this group of individuals that show an intense interest, or hold an intense interest, in UFOs, telepathy, remote viewing, parapsychology, mind control, and the creation of psychotronic weapons. Well, none of that information was out there. So when I was hearing these names, I was investigating, like, who are these people? Because as I was getting to know this guy and we were dating and just being together, he just like exhibited really strange behavior. He was experiencing abduction scenarios, and he was like bleeding out of every orifice. And but something told me this is artificial. I didn't really have a huge concept of MyLabs back then. This was in 2006 when I met him. Military abductions. I was familiar, but like a lot of the things that I had looked into were lighting up. I'm like, oh wait, okay. So this mission had to do with leaving the planet and being permanent colonists on Mars, which ties back to what I was sharing about 1929 and bases on Moon and Mars and how far that goes back. Anyway, so this related also to things presented to Eisenhower's administration. And I think the whole mission behind getting people onto Mars was to control the narrative, to control things going on Earth, or to, like, for some, they were conditioned and groomed to believe that it was a way to escape possible catastrophes and some kind of apocalyptic scenario. But it was very compartmentalized, and not everybody was on the same page, I noticed. So I was super overwhelmed as it was, loving this man and trying to figure all this out with not a whole lot to go on. Um, and yeah, so I'm like, wait a minute, why would we need to evacuate this Earth? And I had an understanding of chemtrails, geoengineering, superstorms, the way that events can be engineered and manipulated. That I'm like, I no, there's no way. This is not my mission. This is not why I came. This is not. There's nothing in me that says this is a yes, yes, yes. Even if my partner is all gung ho and he's been convinced that he's like this hero for having this kind of rescue mission, was how it was presented. But when you realize that the Aviary were the people behind it all, manipulating him, that's not something he was ready to hear. So anyway, I got out of it. I had a really, really profound dream where I made a choice, either to be taken up or to stay on Earth. And after I, had woken up, I was right next to him, and I told him, and everything went crazy after that. They knew that they couldn't have me because I said I made the choice to stay. And he said, well, they're going to take you anyway. And he, at one point, pulled apart the computer batteries and the phone battery, like everything electronic. He made sure was unplugged, and the batteries were removed because he wanted to leak certain information to me. But then all of a sudden, he gets a phone call, and he's like, he disappears and he doesn't even remember. That's when I really started to understand the handler thing. And I'm sure he was traumatized or mind controlled to a certain degree. I'm not sure, but that's how he was acting. But they didn't do that to me. They just used him as bait to try and get me to go to Mars. So That's when I really felt Eisenhower and my connection. Like, okay, this has roots in my administration or back then, um, and and he's almost like been such an incredible guide because he even showed up when I was a child of like helping me to um, notice the synchronicities and just stay strong in myself. Uh, so anyway, and it all traces back to things that took place in his administration. So none of that information was available back then, but now people that have investigated the aviary know that they are connected to my labs and black ops and um, rogue military intelligence units that stalk, harass, and terrorize individuals. And so I feel like they did that with him because he felt like he was communicating with an ET group that said we need to go to Mars because and he was, you know, having these abduction experiences. And that's what I thought my intuition said, artificial telepathy. And later on, it was validated that that's exactly what they were doing. So I had nothing to go on. I just had to trust myself. And when I got out of it, they started to contact me. They didn't want me to call them out. They didn't want me to, you know,
Who's
expose
they, Laura? Can
the
you be
aviary.
specific?
Yeah, the aviary. I did
So
mention,
Pudov,
yeah,
Sarfati, Alexander,
yeah. So
Pandolfi.
I mentioned, yeah. So I mentioned the aviary. When I first went public, I mentioned Hal Puthoff's name, and then like Jack Sarfati, and I believe it was Ron Pandolfi. You know, wanted to connect with me and be like, you know, and I never wanted to make them the bad guys. I'm just saying, you know, there's a lot more to the aviary than what used to be, I think, available that you could search. Now there's a lot more information where you can find out the darker side. They had like a weird desk, and they were mostly known for studying UFO phenomenon and abduction cases and stories. But there's just way more to it, and I don't think they're all bad guys. I mean, the man that I was set up with was a very good person. But what really broke it for me when I realized who they were was when I found out about Paul Benowitz or what happened there, and the level of manipulation, the Men in Black. I mean, it just on and on and on. It's just like the clues were coming, the clues were coming. So most of the information on those guys didn't say anything negative at all back then. Now it's a whole different story. So yeah, I did start to expose them, and then I believe Hal Puthoff said in an interview, "Oh, I've been outed again." He's connected to the Stanford Research Institute, and I think, you know, and Zero Point Energy, and for all I know, you know, and I don't like to make anybody the bad guy. You know, they were convinced, or they were manipulated, or they were put in some sort of, you know, to know who's who, like in that group. I know who the darkest probably are, and who the disinfo agents are, and who was probably played with some of them. But they all have code names that are birds, right? So Hal Puthoff was owl, Ron Pandolfi was pelican, Dr. Chris Green, blue jay. They're all connected to, most of them are connected to three-letter organizations. So anyway, this really, really blew the lid off. And in a lot of ways, and I think this is what's happening with humanity, the more they try and target something, the more they actually bring it to the surface as well. And this is how it's impossible for the deep state to win. People might get distracted, and they might get caught in a loop, and maybe have to experience more lifetimes to break free of it. And however that all works with how time, um, consciousness, and soul moves through, you know, our journey, um, it's inevitable that we overthrow this. Because our soul nature, coming from love, coming from source, coming from that divine blueprint, the laws of nature and the alchemical laws of creation bring us back. Like that's it, every aspect of us is drawn back to that. Question is, are we being duped out of that memory and that um, alignment? And if so, which we have been, you know, it's just simply standing in that remembrance and embodiment literally dismantles the system and begins to start to heal the planetary grids from the reversal energy, and it begins to break it down. So it's way more scared of us than we should be of them, because it's all trickery. It's all, I mean, not to say that there hasn't been horrific abuses and crimes against humanity. I'm not going there yet, right? I'm saying when it comes to, you know, how to handle things from this point forward. You know, people are here on earth right now to build the healing centers, to give voice to victims of pedophilia and trafficking, and to really turn this, whole system around. And it's right here. It's just, yeah, we are where we are. And I feel the Aviary is completely shut down. They were really pissed at him for doing a terrible job at recruiting me. And I
At who,
just,
Laura? Who were they pissed at?
oh, my partner, because he didn't succeed and they were using him as bait, and they were using him for whatever reason. I've heard a lot of different explanations of all this, but yeah, I mean, they just didn't want to work with him anymore, and it was just kind of like, oh, failed mission. And I know it was really tough for him. It was tough that I called this out, because it just destroyed, his perception of what he was doing, that he was. But I tried to convince him when I was with him, like, people are noticing you're disappearing, and the more I was finding out about this group, and I mean, I would go down, like, I would go research and dig deep for weeks at a time. I mean, it was nonstop until I had all the clues I needed to present to him. Get away from these guys. You need to stay with me on Earth. The reason we had such an affinity is because they used looking glass technology to actually locate us in a past life, I was told, because they knew that we had this really powerful union, and they wanted to use that and leverage that. Because when you know, try and terraform or re-inhabit a planetary system, those codes are required, like hierogamic union, sacred union. So they kind of hunt it and seek it and target it to keep us from it in our lives. We all hold that, true grail DNA, and our dormant DNA connects with all of that in the higher harmonic universes. So that's a huge threat to them. So they've been trying to micromanage those kind of relationships coming together. And I think they knew we were destined to come together. And they're like, oh, let's interfere and let's try and break this up or use it to our benefit. And that's just how they operate.
Thank you, Laura. And I don't think, we don't even have to say, oh, these are bad guys, right?
I don't. No, I
A
feel like
lot.
there's a lot of victims. There's a lot of manipulated people. There's a lot of really, really intelligent, well-intentioned individuals. And I just don't mean, I'm not into the polarization or the blame game, but I don't know their life or their story or how they became what they became. But, when we look at ET technology exchanges, MJ-12 being the ones that signed the treaties after 1952, 1953, after Eisenhower stepped into office, you know, these guys were connected to MJ-12. So, and I just want to say on this show, Eisenhower did not sign those treaties. It was done behind his back, and I feel like I kind of inherited the next level of interfacing with ET technology, becoming a military operation to establish a new world order, or to dupe people into thinking that they're escaping it, but they're actually a part of creating it. So I don't know. It's really complicated stuff.
Yeah, it is complicated. And we don't have to say people are bad guys. We can just say, hey, you don't know what you're going to be willing to do if you're convinced that this is on behalf of national security, et cetera. So
Exactly.
without even saying that these are bad guys, are you saying though that how put off, as far as you know, was this gentleman's handler, and that this group was involved in my labs?
Well, I mean, he was. That's how else would I really know his name? I mean, and nobody really knows me, because I'm sure a lot of people have heard of him. I had never heard of him. Um, so, I have all these email exchanges and all the proof, of the back and forth about going to Mars. And his main guy was Hal Puthoff. Hal Puthoff was his hero, but he called him handler. And I'm like, okay, there's the red flag. And I was just keeping track of all the red flags, because in the very beginning, I wasn't thinking this was nefarious. I was like, oh, this is something the public will probably end up knowing. This is something that he's like, no, no, this is all hush hush. You can't say anything. So, and I can imagine how Eisenhower felt in his time. You're making big decisions. You don't know how many people they're impacting or what the ramifications are. You don't have a whole lot to go on. I know it's very different, paths, but it was really, really difficult to know what to do. And I wanted to protect him. And I didn't want to make them the enemy either. I wasn't calling them out to, make them in trouble. But it's like humanity does not deserve to be kept in the dark anymore. And if we're going to run off to Mars, what's going to happen to the Earth? Even if it was to protect the human genome and go to Mars because the Earth has no hope, why don't we be the disclosure and talk about the weapons, talk about these experiences, talk about all of this, and bring as many souls, back to what we're actually capable of, instead of what humans have been manipulated to think we have to do, even coming from their best intent. So, I'm much more a peacemaker than somebody who's like gonna let, yeah. So, I mean, I'm not trying to stir up any trouble, but it's like, we're staying here. Going to Mars was not an option. Most people that I talked to said I made the right decision, but there's something that when you're in it that you have to do. And then it's very easy to look back and be like, I hope that was the right thing. Not that I do that now, but there was a period where, I was questioning all that, and going through a lot of, hardship, broken relationships, being on food stamps, single parenting, my kids, and having to work, playing mom and dad, trying to manage all that at the same time. It challenged me more than, oh man, it was hard.
Laura, at this time, I think it's very difficult for most people to look at what looks almost objectively like a global collapse, a precipice of possible World War III. But you ultimately see something much more hopeful for humanity. What is it? Maybe just contemporaneously, like right now. For me, right now, it feels like we're walking on thin ice and everything's about to break. What is it that you see that looks more like a breakthrough, and causes you to be more hopeful if you're on the good side, on the collective side? What is it you're seeing that I'm having a harder time seeing?
Well, I wouldn't say it's like the easiest thing. Like I wake up in the morning, like, oh, everything's great. It's all going to be fine. I mean, it's a symptom of control agendas collapsing. It's a symptom of the Epstein files and everything coming to light. It's just all a part of it. It's all a part of the control of the stargates, and just creating more trauma, creating more suffering, and just keeping something alive that is, dying out. It's kind of like, and I hate these metaphors sometimes. I don't want to use the word hate, but it's sort of like, are we allowing that ex-partner to call us back and like hook us back in, and tell us something to convince us that they've changed, and they haven't, and it's even worse now. What is going on with this administration? How tied are his hands, because the deep state infiltrated and took over the United States. So we're not dealing with normal presidency, and what we see on the world stage isn't exactly what's happening. So I'm not for or against. I'm not going to share what my opinions are on that. I'm very non-political. I've never voted. I know that's weird but I've always known, this is not a government that, I voted once, and I don't have to say for who or why, but the whole point is that, the deep state is still very much alive. The exposure that we're seeing, the Epstein files, victims coming forward, it being available everywhere on social media, that people are sharing their stories about, MK Ultra or SRA, and what's happening with the royal family, and just this whole global trafficking and off-planet, slave trade and human trafficking thing. It's all, coming to light. There's no way to put that back in a box. One of the biggest psyops in our human history, to create fear, is something that we're moving through right now. And what's on the other side of it I'm not saying advanced technologies that are like alien, but like frequency, light, sound, color, just ways to recover now from all the assault, all the traumas, all the geoengineering, everything that's been inhaled, everything that's been poked into our bodies. Doesn't matter at what stage, we've been exposed to just about everything. Now is the time to acknowledge all the different tactics of the assaults that we've experienced as a humanity, and address them on a societal level. You go to the hospital, it's a healing center, and it deals with trauma-based mind control, deals with, victims of trafficking. There's advocates and volunteers and guardians, at schools, like everything is gutted from this kind of satanic, inverted, sickening society. And we have to do that. And it's hard, because we want somebody else to do it, but we have to stand up because it's right under our noses. It's under our feet. It's under hospitals. It's under, airports. It's police force. It's people that should be protecting us that aren't, that are, in our neighborhoods or in our towns or cities. And when we see all the protests and we see all the different events to rile up this sort of political divide, it's sort of missing the mark in a lot of ways. But now, now that this is out there, this, the Epstein stuff, and the acknowledgement of some of these people that many humans have fallen prey to and believed in, now it's accountability time. So I feel, yeah, this is not a good time for a war, to be worried about war. And um, and what keeps me, hopeful is, I wouldn't say like I am the bringer of, I do have a lot of hope, and I have nothing but hope, but I'm not the bringer of like being really, really good at managing my everyday. Like I said, um, I feel I'm not where I'm supposed to be personally, and maybe that's just something that will change. But I was hoping to, I don't know, be in a kind of a different position. And I feel very misunderstood for the times maybe I wasn't handling attacks or handling my path in the best way. And people have just sort of, I don't know, lost interest. But at the same time, it's not about me. It's just about the message. It's about something that I feel an urgency like move through me, that sometimes I feel I just don't have the means. I just don't have the ability. I just don't have the, and then I even question it. I'm like, what is it anyway? Like, but it's really, wanting to stand side by side with other humans that are into like the unity, that are into taking on a leadership role, that recognize that this is not about hierarchy. This is about repairing, rehabilitation, and coming to terms with all of what's been happening. So um, again, that's just, sometimes my frustration and lack of patience, and maybe I don't need to do anything more than what I've already done. I don't know. It's just, that's just me. I'll keep showing up, and I'll just keep flowing. And I'm just going to be here as a resource and just somebody to, hold, you know, as much love as I possibly can. Um, so I guess the hope is that we all come together, that the games that are pitting us against each other and the tactics being used to make it really, really hard for us to unify. When I say unify, it doesn't mean we all have to love each other, but we don't allow the fragmentation and discord and lower ego energies to allow archonic forces to come in. Because we're only seeing a reflection of the health of humanity right now in its own awakening process. And the earth can shift dramatically in what we see on the world stage if we change the conditions from within and we begin to work together a lot more. So, when we look at schools, indoctrination camps, it's pulling a child out of their soul calling and putting it into, a box, get the grades, get the degree, and go do this and work for us. And here's your paycheck, here's your reward. But, when the psyops come, you're going to have to answer to them, or else you're going to lose your paycheck and your reputation, and we're just going to smear you. That's been the name of the game. A very, very slow grooming process that has captured so many people in a system that they think is supporting their best talents and skills. And it is to a certain degree, but then it's not. So, there needs to be an abandoning of that, and a restructuring, and a resurgence of leadership that, is committed to cleansing it fully and completely. So who's going to be the one that comes in and says, who are the bad and dirty cops? Who are the teachers? It's like the cleanup is insane. But if we can help the souls that have come in be the best that they came here to be, if we can really acknowledge, the star seeds that have been targeted and projected upon, or the earth warriors, whatever, I'm not much for labels, but if we can just really get to the soul of the matter, what makes us tick, what's our inspiration, what's the depth of who we truly are, and begin to embrace that and put more attention on it, we know exactly what we need to do and why we're here. It's the social engineering and the mind control and all the games being played that get us all like entangled and messed up and distracted and drained, and so we just need to prioritize that. So that's what I've been doing, since I became public. Just having people gather once a week for a Zoom call to just share, kind of pass the talking stick. I do mini readings for people, and I see other people doing that kind of thing. And that's really what it's going to take, is that we build community. And the thing is, the ether element, the 13th sign, the planetary grid work that has been done to make this world more hospitable so that ascension energy can circulate through it from the cosmos and the planetary alignments, that's all very much intact. So I think there's a lot more on our side to snuff, or like to resolve this a lot more quickly than maybe it looks. But it's going to take, this is about us. You know, we're very used to sitting back and seeing what's going on in the world. We feel at the mercy of what's going on in the world. But the planetary alignments are so incredibly strong right now. Saturn conjunct Neptune in harmony with Uranus and Pluto. Basically, what that means is the energies are allowing for a tremendous awakening and embodied sense of self. Um, and with the capacity to hold our sovereignty and uniqueness. It's not about sameness. It's not about some kind of like anything like that. It allows us to be creative beings. Of course, we're creative. We're creative all the time, but we're very often creating on behalf of programmings. We're creating, more not trouble, but when our creative channels get infected by events that are happening outside of us, we kind of get ensnarled in it and our creative energy gets heavily involved. So we don't want to turn a blind eye, but we want to do it with more neutrality and more focus on the solution, and really preparing the world for, something that isn't dependent on a system that has conditioned people to believe that it's about the money, it's about the paycheck. It's like we're abundant beings. We're highly, highly creative. We have to be resourceful and not go into survival, every time, something's threatened. We have to really reclaim what has been dormant and what these fear tactics rob us of in the moments that it especially is feels especially difficult to hold. you know, the nervous system picks up on signals from the higher self and the ascension signals coming from source energy and the healing of the planetary system and the reclamation of the planetary body of the mother herself, the cosmic mother energy. I know that all sounds so woo-woo and it's not new age. It's very in-depth that I get into in my book. And it's very, very relevant about the Sophionic energy. So there's so much more intact than we can imagine, but this shift is messy because it's not just the government, it's not politics, it's not just some Epstein ring. We're talking, it's in our schools. It's kids that our children are sitting next to in a classroom, that might be taken down into tunnels. It's people that are pursuing, different things in life that might be, blackmailed or compromised to play, a specific role, and they were drugged and they don't remember anything. We have to understand all of this in order to truly rehabilitate and not get into the political divide and just focus on our missions and be resourceful, pool our resources together and really rebuild on our own terms. And whatever leader out there, is in alignment with that and is in support of that and is advocating for that, on the world stage, awesome. But we don't need to wait around for anybody because we have what it takes to do it. We've been used and harvested and abused for too long. But we're not going to just be able to jump from one to the other without major attention on what we're recovering from, the betrayal, the horror, the memories that people are all of a sudden getting in touch with that were wiped. It's like there's a, a lot, there's a lot to do. There's a lot to do, but I feel, and this is what Dan Cooper said, and I don't want to put numbers on it, but he said, in about 600 years, this world's going to be a completely different place. He already saw down the timelines. They showed, Ike's Force and other, temporal management correction teams and a much bigger galactic picture connected with the Guardians. They're with us. The white hats are real. There are all sorts of things operating on our behalf. And it's not that it came to save the day. It's because it's a part of who we are. It's a part of our DNA. It's a part of our reclamation. And it's a part of a deeper calling that resides in all of our souls. The question is, can we reclaim it and remember it enough to embody it so that we can live out the instructions we receive from our intuition and higher guidance to manifest it in physical form? And that is key for every single soul that's born here on earth to take on the task of. Because it's not, a special group. It's not chosen ones. It's all of us. Every single person that releases themselves from the control system and begins to find their sovereignty and creative energy and miracle vibration and capacity to heal, is one more force that impacts the collective for the better, to override war, conflict, and any the fact that all these rings are being called out and the fact that the architecture and the deeper underbellies of all these systems are coming to light. I feel like this is the last difficult phase. We got to get through this war. We got to get on the other side of it. But the last thing we need to do is fight over who's right or wrong, or like shaming people for liking Trump and still supporting him and those that don't. It's just, we got to untangle ourselves from the mess it creates, because we can't think clearly, and we got to focus on what's been kept from us, what's been discarded, what's been demonized. Like nobody even knows who Sophia is. And I grew up getting kind of downloads about it. I'm like, who's this Sophia? Like having dreams about it, and just the remedial corrections that this planetary system has been doing. And this is why they wanted to hijack that, go to Mars, and engineer artificial timelines and create a new world order. Anything to continue to feed something that has fallen or lost its direct connect. And this is how we win the war. We override that through just being true to ourselves. We don't have to be these perfect spiritual masters, but it's the willingness to look at ourselves and, take that step into, a much more higher road and an upgraded version of ourselves. If we want an upgraded earth, we have to be upgraded humans. And in that upgrade, it's basic stuff: integrity, compassion, forgiveness, just Christed qualities that even religion has taken away from people, because they're righteous about what they believe and everybody else is a sinner. It's like, the programmings are everywhere in every sector of our society. And it doesn't mean it's all bad, but just take what resonates, and let's humble ourselves and allow these alignments to like move through us and inspire us to step up to the plate in the face of fear and adversity, to reclaim and not go the other direction. And that's what I guess I've been struggling with. And I wouldn't say it's what I'm talking about, but the other direction being, why bother? Those days where you're just like, why bother? We all have those kind of days. I'm not perfect. But those are very small compared to the amount of days where I'm like, I'm going to give it my all. And, we're here for soul development, regardless of what happens on this earth. We're on a deeper soul journey, and we will manifest into a situation that matches us. The thing is, so many of us are here to volunteer, to help, or to, come in and learn our lessons from past lives and, step it up. Or maybe all the above, right? So we know exactly what to do. It's wired into us. Our oversoul, this whole journey. This is not like, do we win or do we lose? This is, do we cut the cords and realign and allow the flow and circulation of energy to work through us in order to advance our human vessel and the planetary system and the ground beneath our feet. And simple practices to make sure that that's what you're doing, is everything. I slip sometimes, like I go into little addiction spirals here and there, and it's just like, I know it's not, easy,
Are
and
you saying
sometimes
I'm
I
not
get.
the only one? This is a tough time right now, Laura, right? It seems like the world's falling apart, and the power's not in the hands of the masses, and even the people who are waking up. It feels like our power doesn't matter. So I'm resonating with a lot of what you're saying. We have I don't know how hard of a stop you have, 8 p.m. Eastern, but if we do have a hard stop, I want to be able to bring up some people for questions. Let me
Okay,
know
great.
how you're doing in
I,
terms of time.
yeah, no, I'm fine. I can go a little bit more than a half hour, and I hope I'm not just rambling too much.
Well, I mean, there's no such thing as rambling too much. I want you to ramble. I want you to get lost in the weeds. I don't want you to be tethered to anything. But there's one thing that piqued my interest that you said, um, that maybe I'm just projecting my own doom porn here, and I don't want for this world to end. But I did hear something that you alluded to that sounded like you were expecting some sort of a cataclysm or an ending for this planet. Am I mishearing you? What am I
Oh,
hearing?
not at all. No, I never have.
Like when you were
That
talking
that's what
about
the
Earth
the
versus
aviary.
some other planet. What were you implying
Oh, I'm
there?
saying worst case scenario. What is the worst case scenario? I mean, we never die. I mean, we're infinite beings. We'll always end up somewhere to experience creation. I I know that everything's going to be okay here. There's been too much invested for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. This is one of the toughest missions, one of the toughest places to be, I feel, for any awakened soul that has come to help to um, take all of this down, or and then with all the exposure of what's going on, there's still a war. How is that possible? All this awakening, all of this acknowledgement of what's happening in the larger picture, available to us. How is this manifesting? Well, think about what would have manifested if we hadn't gotten as far as we have. That was never a part of the plan. They were going to take. There was supposed to be a fake alien invasion in 2014, and that's where the Guardians come in. Eisenhower appealed to the Guardians with the help of Val Thor. Okay, that might sound outlandish. How can that be true? Well, where I'm hearing it and the sources of information, it's just like, doesn't even matter if people believe it or not, because it happened and they're that certain. Then you got Lisa Renee, energeticsynthesis.com, the guardian souls that are here. You know, we would have been in so much of a different situation today if it weren't for so many different things that were put in place. The countermeasures, think about if we hadn't won the Second World War. We didn't really win the Second World War, but we're winning it now. I'm just saying, there's always been something that has moved through humanity to keep us, afloat. No matter what the threat has been, we just keep going. We just keep going. And bifurcation or some kind of timeline shift might not be something that we see with one world ending and then we just land in another one. It might be just something we wake up to where something else dissolves. We're experiencing whatever our soul requires to bring us home, because that's the magnetic pull of our soul back to source, where it originated. So the whole concept of this Earth ascension has to do with the fact that this is a planet that was seeded as an ascension planet, that it would move from, lower strand DNA into the full embodiment again. 7 root races, 5 cloister races. What does all that mean, right? Well, there was going to be a slow reclamation and reconnecting to, our DNA over the course of time, to move through what we've needed to move through in order to reclaim it. Well, invader races took advantage, and it's just, we're not really left alone. And so when amnesia has been so strong in humanity, it's very easy for it to embed itself very, very deeply into, this planet and into our minds and into our process. So every person that dismantles this from within has already won the war. As far as what we witness and experience in the outer world, we can gauge everything based on that and have it lift us up and throw us back down, disappoint us, scare us, and create this, feeling of, where is this all going to go? But I probably taste a little bit of all of it in a week, right? Or even in a day, of just all these possible scenarios. But I always return to the one that makes my body and nervous system ground. And that's that there's nothing, but hope. We're in a experience of restoration repair. If we're not a part of that, we might fall into some other scenario, but it doesn't mean that we're not going to get back on board. I mean, think of how many lifetimes people have. One of my favorite documentary shows is The Ghost Inside My Child, where children recall their past lives. They have bleed throughs, they have memories. Our astrological charts show patterning from past lives. We come in, with a bleed through or certain experiences that we need to relive in order to master them. So, what I have to do for my own sanity is to just focus on that. I'm always going to be in service to others. I have a huge love for people and humanity and our greater potential. I was born with it. I've had it for lifetimes. I'm sure I've had a lot of lifetimes where maybe it was really hard to connect with. I don't know. I don't like talking about me as far as what kind of soul I am, but I know I'm geared towards the restoration. I knew it from the minute I was born. I knew, with everything that has come to light and some of the communications that come through, that it keeps reinforcing that and reinforcing that. Does it mean I believe it all the time? That's also what I'm healing. It's like when you're kicked so much or ridiculed so much, and you don't really have the best relationship with, I don't know. It just sometimes just feels like it's just nothing but doom and dark. But those are usually, things that fall away, and something emerges. I have to allow myself to feel through it, in the times that I can't let go. Same thing with things that are, transpiring. I think it's very important to be prepared, to be resourceful, to live every day like it might be the last. I don't see this, I see this world turning into a star. I'm never going to like disconnect myself of what I deep down know and what I've always been fighting for. And I wouldn't say fighting in a duality sense, but um, fighting really hard, I guess, against the current. Dan Cooper says they spend millions, trillions of dollars to try and shut people like us up, to try and gaslight, to censor. They tried all that, right? And we're still going, so there's wars going on in the cause. You just war to exist in a completely peaceful realm. I think it's going to take a little while because we have to heal the children and the next generation and prepare them for what's to come. I think there's a lot of trauma loops that happen when war takes place because of, starvation, just innocent people, children it's impossible to disconnect fully. I mean, my nervous system is completely tied into the planet. So like, I'm like constantly treating my nervous system with magnesium and herbs because I feel it. Like I feel it. And I feel it usually weeks or months before an event even takes place. I'm just like, I just feel something like really messed up is about to happen. But, I see it fading away because what is good and what is organic and what is real and what is a part of the unconditional source energy that we're connected to and a part of is way, way stronger. And I'm not into the darkest before the dawn. I'm so tired of that. It's like there's a lot of darkness before the dawn. Like it's like the darkness before the darkness before the darkness of the dawn. Like no. But I have a feeling that this is the last big sort of event. And the reason I say that is not because I have the psychic vision, but I have the creative intent that I'm going to hold that and I'm going to ground into that and I'm going to speak words that support that and I'm going to be the best person I can be to allow it to flow through me. And if after all that, which I've been doing a lot in my life, sometimes, falling and getting back up, then where can I find peace in myself as a soul when I move on from here? I don't know what else to say. I know it all sounds so philosophical. I'm just as disturbed as probably the next person about, what's kind of going on. But my husband will listen to it 24/7, right? I know that when I write and what flows through me though isn't really about that. It's really about seeing, the hope and the potential. So we have to stay creative. We have to also allow the negative feelings to surface and to give voice to them and not act like, oh, if you're negative, you're going to create it. No, we deserve to be outraged. We deserve to be disturbed. We deserve to be angry, and depressed even and anxiety ridden. But we have to give it a voice because it also holds the key to the solution because it's showing up because our body, our consciousness, our mind, our emotions want to do something and it's wired to do something. But sometimes when we just stew in the way that it feels, we forget that there's a creative force that's moving through us that holds the solution. So I make sure to give voice when I want to cry, when I feel anxious. That's usually when my best writing comes through. I'm like, oh, that was a download, but I was not allowing myself to write. Instead, I'm just stewing in anxiety instead of expressing myself, right? So if we could all do that, I don't know, I think we're going to see some amazing things happen.
Laura, I gonna let some people up. I'm sure they're dying to ask questions, and if I if I don't let the few people up right now requesting after we already didn't let everybody ask their questions in the last space, I'm just gonna have a target on my back. Um,
Okay, that's fine. And I can see if I can stay a little longer. So we're good.
that would be wonderful. And right now it's just two, but typically once somebody gets a mic, sometimes it blows up into like 2,000. Um, and one thing I would like to ask you before we go to the first mic, when it comes to let's say Trump, it seems like you have, and I know you don't want to be partisan, and that's fine. I'll just disclose my vote. All right, and I'm not asking you to say how you voted. I'm just saying you don't need to be worried about political attacks here. I did not vote because I'm a disclosure absolutist, and nobody told me what I wanted to hear. I wanted to hear all I care about is UFO disclosure, and I didn't hear that, so none of the candidates got my vote. But it seems like you have
Right. Well, I'm the same. Yep.
you're the same.
Same. Uh-huh.
You want to join my party? It's the disclosure absolutist party. All we give a fuck about is disclosure, and everything else comes second. There's no anything else. Um, so, but it seems like you have a fairly unusual conception or theory about Trump's role in ushering about singularity technology and disclosure. Do you mind explaining what your view is, if you're comfortable with that?
Yeah, I just assess and just kind of, I don't know. There's a lot I'm on the fence about. I think there's a lot more going on than what we can see. I know Eisenhower helped seed the white hats, and there's some link to Trump and the white hats, but I mean, this is not something that can happen very easily. What is the deal with, him doing what Israel wants him to do, with all this? But there's so much conflicting information. It's just not really my expertise to know how to analyze this. I listen to like Douglas McGregor and a lot of the geopolitical stuff, and I'm like, yeah, and it's kind of a Libra thing maybe too, where I'm like, I can see all sides and possibilities. But now I don't know. I mean, the reason I didn't vote and reason I don't vote, except for once in my life, is because I don't want to create contract. I don't want to look outside myself. I don't want to wait on something. I feel it's up to us as the human race. I don't know if it's because I'm an Eisenhower and that kind of leadership is already like built in. I don't think so. I don't think it's necessarily genetic. I just feel when I get to know people, like, you're a leader in your own right. You have all the answers. Your soul knows exactly what you're here to do. And these are the things that I'm saying. Leadership shows up in different ways. We can lead by example. We can just take a stand in overriding or overcoming something in our lives and helping others through it in a similar way. So, I don't know his strategies. I listen to Benjamin Fulford at times, and it's like, that's not even the real Trump. And this is why these are the chess moves. And I'm like, I don't know. I just get so tired of it in a lot of ways that I just sort of step back and I'm just focused on what's moving through me instead of analyzing everything that's happening outside of me. I kind of go in and out, but I've taken a bit of a break. And when this war hit, I really just all of a sudden thought of the 10th gate, how that connects with the draconian and the Black Sun agenda. And just, yeah, I don't know. Once you start going into this territory and innocent lives are being lost, I don't have a mind for war. I can't explain any goodness and any good reasoning for it. But I also know that, uh, yeah, there's certain things about all of this that made it seem like he thought it was a good idea at the time. And now he's saying that we can, it's just, I don't know. There's a part of me that's just so fed up. Like, honestly, I feel so like almost like I just can't take it anymore. And it doesn't, and I'm not saying that from a place of
Does it seem to
negative
you like
energy or running away. My nervous system literally can't engage in that. I just,
does it
right
does it
now.
seem to you like more people than you would expect are hijacked, including those running our government? Does it seem like a different program is running them?
Yeah, well, it's been that
It's
way.
been that way.
And
Yeah.
it's been that way for so long, and everybody thought, Trump is different. Now, the thing is, in this day and age, we have CGI, we have AI, there's a lot of fake news, there's a lot of surface stories, and a lot of things, happening that we don't really know about, that people speculate about, or they call themselves insiders and they share. And the thing is, the compartmentalism has to die. So if we can all be a part of this conversation and remove the compartments and open the doorway between the compartmentalizations and begin to really connect the dots and look at it all, and this is why I love this kind of show, because these sort of discussions are so important. It could all line up. I'm more leaning towards something has been massively compromised. Like, a part of me just does not feel good at all about what's happening. Um,
Okay.
And but at the same time, like, is this an opportunity to then pull our energy back? And this is what I didn't understand a lot about with uh putting too much hope in a person. Oh, he's going to do this and he's going to do that. Or like, really, we're talking like, somebody running for president. Okay, and I could see where he was an anomaly, and I was calling out Hillary Clinton back in 2011. And could tell that his energy was different, or there was something different about him. Um, but at the same time, that's just my opinion. But those individuals that have survived trauma-based mind control, or have been around politicians and celebrities and people that are a part of all that, never saw him, or like they felt that he was the one that was going to create the change. So I was coming from a place of supporting them and what they felt good about, people like Kathy O'Brien and other people. And whether they feel the same about him today or not doesn't matter, because the reason a lot of people felt good about him was because these sort of dialogues were beginning to happen, and he was a major catalyst. So, the deep state, most presidents answer to it, the deep state. Um,
Yeah. This
to
is at the
take it
heart of the
down is to
question.
literally, like, because after 1952, sorry, I'll just say this real quick. After
You're good. You don't need to
1952,
apologize, Laura.
yeah, after 1952, the unconditional surrender instrument, is like, y- you're either owned by it and you allow that, or everything's threatened. Like, you are absolutely threatened. When I was stepping up against, the aviary, which is a small maybe chunk of all that, or infiltrated by all that, that was hard enough in my own life to survive. I can't even imagine even attempting to enter a position of, presidency this at this stage in the game. So, to me, it's an opportunity for all of us. If people decide, they're going to pull their attention back, and now they're seeing, okay, this is not going in the way that they wanted or hoped. we, it forces us to fall back on ourselves, and I feel that is a part of humanity's growth period right now. The lessons of our soul experience is to, like, really bring it back to ourselves. Now, how is that supposed to look? So I kind of talked about that as far as shifting the way the whole system is, and kind of knowing who's who, and there has to be more takedown of, ritual abuse. I mean, you don't hear about them being raided, or like them being pulled out, or like while they're about to abuse somebody. Like, how is any of it still existing? So it's slowly being dismantled, and it's being taken down. So, and what rises in the face of that are people that are no longer in celebrity worship. They see the reality of the way the world is. They see more who is who, maybe not everyone, but that is going to shift the collective in more ways than we can realize, because a huge portion of humanity was very, very linked into watching the television, emulating Hollywood, and trying to prove themselves in the school systems, and going to the doctor, and how the whole the military industrial complex and the whole money system through all these pillars of society and the Vatican, and all of that, have kept us in this currency and system that um, is now falling apart. So the hardest part of the war is coming undone, and that's the war on consciousness. Now that people have no choice but to face, like, not maybe going to that Beyonce concert with your 12-year-old child, or not maybe pursuing that Hollywood dream and putting your kids in the Disney thing, now that all that's coming to the surface, we're talking about the consciousness of many, many humans that are now being pulled back into a process that society has not seen for thousands of years, as far as really beginning to deprogram, really beginning to see the underbelly, really beginning to see the satanic network and how vast it is. So that alone is going to shift the collective. It's just, there has to be more resources for people to be able to process through this, and to be able to shift their trajectory towards something that feels sustainable, instead of a lot, where maybe even the bioweapons or some of these different tactics are going to compromise them, age them really fast, and cause a lot more casualties than what we're seeing. There needs to be, the right kind of leadership that steers this all in the right direction, because we do have the resources. Those technologies are there. We have free energy. We have everything we could possibly need. So my whole philosophy is, we got what it takes. Let's do this. And I have no time for all that bullshit. And hopefully, in doing all of this, we'll see the world stage shift in accordance.
Okay.
I just really want us to embody the solution. And yeah, there's a long way to go. There's a long way to go, but I feel every false flag, every psyop, every war, there's going to be casualties. Even what we saw in 2020, a virus, these
And
shot, all of it.
and
There's
Laura,
casualties.
I just don't want, I want to limit the number of casualties we have as people requesting to ask a question and not making it up. I want to see if we can try to get every soldier through just on this stage. Can we give it a try?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Fringe and Tiff, I'm really relying on your help here. Let whoever's left in the queue, I think we have two people. Let's bring them up, and then let's shut the floodgates forever until the next reset. Um, and let's see if we can get through as many hands as possible. Please put your hand up. I'm going to request that it's just one question. Please don't spend 1.5 minutes doing a preamble, telling us your star sign and everything, because you're taking away from somebody else being able to ask their question. Who should we go to first? Fringe and Tiff.
I think Sarah Beth or Daz was first.
Let's do Sarah Beth. Sarah Beth, welcome to the Doom Room. What's your question for Laura?
Oh, I just really quick wanted to say it was a great space, and thank you, Laura, for everything that you shared. Resonated with it a lot. I especially enjoyed what you were sharing about the grid working and the earth gates. And so I just personally, sorry, I just walked up the flight of stairs. But I just personally work with that kind of stuff. And I just wanted to actually ask, like, do you think that I don't know. I wanted to get your personal opinion because I had done some work in Chicago with the Nubian Black Heart reversal grid. So oh, did she oh, she dropped down to listener.
We'll get her back.
Hopefully she can still hear me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll get her back.
But I just wanted to know if she had
Sorry, my bad. My bad.
No, you're good. You're good. You're good. I just wanted to know if she had any insight on some of the like critical points in North America, like if she'd had any leads on that, and work coming up for like I guess this upcoming year, because I know that she's involved in a lot of that kind of thing. So I didn't know if she had any upcoming events or insight. So hopefully she heard me. If
I
not,
don't
yeah.
see her anywhere, Ulrich. Do you?
I lost my signal, and then when I came back up, I saw that she had dropped as soon as I requested.
Well, no questions tonight, folks. Everybody go home.
We're batting 1,000 today on our question, on our letting people up and ask questions, Doomer. Nobody's going to join our spaces anymore. They're going to know that we're just lying to them when we say
You're
that
so
they can have
greedy.
questions.
It's a total con. We do spaces. You just can't request a mic.
What's happened? Have we lost her?
Ulrich, you are gonna owe me so much.
All these
All
love
right,
and
I think we're
lighters
gonna get her
coming
back
to
here.
me as if I now owe them because I
Hello?
couldn't ask
Can you hear me?
Laura Eisenhower.
I can
Yep,
hear
we got you
you.
back.
Okay, sorry. You're going to have to give me the summarized question. I missed it.
You're totally fine, Laura.
No worries.
It's totally fine. Sarah, can you repeat your question, please?
Yeah, I just I was excited because I'm a grid worker too, and I've been doing a lot of work in the last 12 months in this regard. So I just was curious if you had any insight on upcoming events in North America for 2026, and if there were any areas that maybe like you would suggest needing some work. I did some work in Chicago this last summer solstice, and I know that Chicago is an Nubian Black Heart reversal grid, and it's actually where my family's from. So I was really resonating with everything you were sharing. So I was just curious if you had
Oh,
any
cool.
insight. Yeah.
Not specifically. I just feel, where to go. You're just going to be called, and The areas that I'm going, I always feel that in my, being, okay, it's I'm being called to go to this particular location. I don't know about any trips that like Lisa Renee is taking or any, but yeah, good question. I'll have to give it some thought, and I can always, message you. And
Sounds good.
yeah,
Yeah. All right.
Thanks so
Perfect. You can get to some other
Thanks so much,
people.
Sarah. Okay, we're gonna go to Daz, then Texas Annie, and then W. Sponagle. Please try to make it as concise and as brief as possible. Daz, welcome to the Doom Room, man.
Hi. Thank you, Laura.
hey,
Yes, we are in the do room. I was a bit confused because I was like, oh my God, this feels like they're hosting a Love and Lighter, but you're not. You're actually very balanced and have all the range when it comes to your consciousness, and I really respect that. For me, similar to
oh,
Sarah, the grids was the reason why I came up. It's something that I think I work with, but more interdimensionally. I don't necessarily go there physically, but there's days and times where I guess spirit is guiding me to kind of like plug my consciousness in. That's just the best way that I can explain it. And what I found being in the UFO community is that I see certain aspects in this reality, i.e., the black goo, the satanic ritual abuse, and also the alien abduction, seem to be things that are plugged into the grid to maybe stop our ascension or try to shift the timeline. Can you speak on any more of that? That's just what I kind of feel like. Some of us are here to combat that, and then all of these events are happening to keep us tied in to this negative timeline.
oh, definitely, yes, and that's really the name of the game. Why there's ritual abuse and blood sacrifice and wars and psyops, and I mean just everything under the sun. Bioweapons, geoengineering, GMOs, just all AI weaponized. Um, yeah, and none of it really being addressed. The medical industry, wants to silence the signals, or not the signals, but signals. I guess signals a good word, but what's moving through us from a young age. You know, it starts when we're really, really young. The minute a child is born, they're invaded with all these different, things that affect frequency and affect the health of that individual throughout their whole lifetime. And so, we have to, from the very beginning, either recognize that we're born into a war on consciousness, a war on our bodies, a war on our minds, um, using us, wanting us because we're a prize to them, and overcoming it, or we get sucked up into it and we don't realize it because we're unconscious, or your people gravitate towards movements or this side or choosing that side, and it's still a part of the divide and conquer. When the way the political world has been is that both sides are basically owned. And yes, perhaps this administration can eventually override this, and there's something else coming about, but that's really what it is. And the fact that you recognize that means that you have the awareness to know intuitively what is in inversion, what's in reversal, what is an imposter, what is a false light being, what is a dark agenda, a psyop. um, and that's incredible to develop, and it's a very important part of our being to develop. The problem is amnesia and denial, and these programmings and the punishment and reward system has people so hooked in that and how it's passed generation to generation, it can be really hard. That's why folks like yourself and strong warrior energies and star seeds and have come in to be like, we're going to remember, we're going to know this from a very, very young age. Or when we, get on board with it, there's going to be no turning back. And there begins to kickstart the dismantling of the weaponry from within and without in the planetary grids. Because our system can override bioweapons, the planetary energies are doing that to our own body. Earth, air, fire, water, ether. The ether element is the great alchemizer that turns lead into gold, that really breaks down the toxicity in the bioweapons, the dark technologies. And that is a circulation of energy that is available to all. So if we're not in touch with that, those, energies in ourselves are captured, and stolen and siphoned in order to battery up these, other timelines. And so when there's trigger events, when there's suffering, when there's trauma, when there's grief, when society doesn't hold any real solution but maybe false hope, or you know more distraction, or uh, these tactics that aren't addressing it head on, um, we go off into these little pockets of energies that keep us spinning and going nowhere. So, you're doing amazing, because I can just tell by your energy and your voice that, you allow yourself to see this and to hold your ground really, really strong. And in that, it can't plug in. It cannot steal. It cannot penetrate. And if it did, you would know to correct it. You would know to take the time to repair. You would release it, transmute it, right? And the thing is, humans all have that gift and ability. It's just the not knowing. It's the amnesia. It's everything that they've leveraged. The good intentions of humanity, you know, our hopes, our dreams, our fears, all being weaponized. But if we can stay in the circulation of creative flow and allow ourselves to be this override frequency, we literally dismantle the dark weaponry, because we're way higher beings than 5G or any of these technological intrusions and inversions. It's just when we consent or buy into it, then all of a sudden our creative energy is battering up the very thing we don't want. And because they can't create on their own, they can only steal. That's why I always say they're the powers that stole, we're the powers that be, because we're the ones that hold the power. So just being aware of that makes all the difference everywhere you go, you know?
Thank you, Laura.
So, yeah.
Hey, you guys. So next, I think we had Texas. Was it Texas Annie?
Yeah. Hi, Laura.
Hi
It's
there.
how are you?
Oh, I'm okay. How are you?
Good, good. I'll never forget you from the time we met in Vegas at Lewis's tour there.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Oh.
when I said to you, I go, you speak your mind. I've spoke my mind since I was a child. I knew I didn't belong here. I knew I was meant to just speak out and tell people like it is. I got the shit beat out of me doing it, but I didn't care. And I said, you and I would have been best friends in grade school. you know?
Awesome.
Yeah,
I think I remember that. Oh my God.
yeah.
It's like,
I got blonde hair, Texas. But anyway, I was always so. I always understood everything you said. And you talk fast, but I could pick you up just like anything, like you were speaking my language. And I don't know if everybody in here knows who Valthor was. You just say Valthor like everybody knows him, but I know who he is, and it's um, it's amazing. I There's a lot of people who speak terribly against your great grandfather, and there's books written about him and say he did this and that. And I'm with you. I think that he was made to do a lot of things. A lot of things were blamed on him, and I think people are trying to keep this world from being a better place. I believe I was placed here to try to help make it become a better place, like you and a lot of others. And by speaking our mind, by telling people about it, and I think you're wonderful.
oh, thank you.
And
Thanks for saying hi.
yeah, I wanted to say hi.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's part of the millions and trillions that they spend, because, if they take out or smear or cause people to dislike, somebody that actually fought on our behalf and put countermeasures in place and did things that made a difference, then we would have hope. They don't want us to have hope. They want to give the hope to the false people that are deep state plants, or, you know, and I don't want to. It's hard to know who's who at times. And I
Right,
wouldn't,
right
if
now, I
Eisenhower,
think we're living in one big psyop, and it's for us to figure out.
for
Uh,
sure, and and the thing is, it's about us though, and yeah. So I
That
know in my heart
that
who he
time,
was and what he did, and it doesn't matter if people get it or not. The most important thing is that we all hold hands and we heal together, because we all have ancestors, we all had past lives, we're all here today, and let's just move
yeah,
forward. I mean, I'll advocate for him and I'll share what I know, but even when I wasn't sure, I wasn't afraid to share some of those uncomfortable things that people had brought up.
right.
But yeah, it's all of us, and he knew that. One of the
Mhm.
things he brought forward is the most tragic thing is when a person forgets who they truly are, because it's the leadership of the future and humanity rising and taking down the deep state. This is why you guys don't wait on governments, because it's us.
Mm. I don't let anybody tell me who I am. I am who I am. If you like me, you like me. You don't, you don't, and I don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
Texas Annie, thank you so much. I want to make
Thank
sure,
you.
yeah, and I want to see if we can get through these hands. We still have,
Okay.
excuse me.
Thank you,
Go
Laura.
ahead, Texas Annie.
Thank you so much, Texas Annie.
Thanks. So we still have Andra W. Sponagle, Gasp, and of course favorite friend of the show TJ at the very end. If the world does not end before then, so we're gonna go to. Oh no, Andrea, make your way up here. And then while we're waiting on Andrea, who did I say? We're gonna go to Texas Sponagle since you got cut off in the last one. Go ahead, man.
Thank you very much. I just want to keep this brief and thank you for the space, Doom. You're growing on me very quickly, and the community here, great minds. Unified awareness in terms of the solution-based thinking, right, of the overall consciousness is kind of what I'm gathering from Laura and my experience with her thus far, and that being the ultimate way forward, right? It's we the people that must make the difference, fundamentally speaking, and recapturing our sovereignty in the process, right? And as a spiritual being and as a physical being as well, right?
Totally.
So I think this would be structured, depending on the person or the situation, through what drives them, right? Their faith or their motivation, their service that they can provide. Would you say that would play a part as well as the unified awareness or consciousness towards these aspects?
Absolutely. So, like, give it just the way a person makes choices in the day to day. I mean, that's really what the growth period of humanity is. The south node Virgo to the north node Pisces. It's an integration of polarity. So Virgo, ruled by Mercury, is how does the mind talk to the body? If it's speaking if it's speaking programmings to the body, negative self-talk, or things that aren't in alignment with the dreams and visions and the higher awareness that we hold from our creative imagination and our capacity to manifest, then disease, negative choices, bad choices, attachments that might not be healthy, or looking for validation, just all these different characteristics that kind of keep us in a low vibration and make us unwell eventually if we don't catch it. And sometimes we just inherit things to work out something that an ancestor maybe didn't, that we agreed to and we don't realize, right? And what's amazing is, just like going to the grocery store, a person who wants to change their life is going to have to put different things in the basket. And that's where the change happens. It's in, which calls are you going to take? Which ones are you going to ignore? Where are your boundaries? It's so hard to recapture self-worth if you've had difficult relationships with parents, if you grew up in a violent household, or there was divorce and separation. And that's why this sacred union is so targeted, because we grow up without these issues being dealt with very often. And it can, like, really make our choices, can harm those choices. Um, so it just, takes a lot to really live the spiritual path and have it be a way of life instead of something that, we separate from the everyday. So in
Beautiful.
every moment, we make a choice to bring more healing to ourselves instead of self-destruction or making choices because of a lack of self-worth. And that's a huge rehabilitation I think the whole of humanity is facing, is to redefine our abundance and sense of worth. Sorry, I didn't mean to. I hope I'm not going off
No,
on a tangent.
understood loud and clear. And I just wanted to thank the hosts again and take a chance to say, share this out. I really like this space, and I'll land my plane with this. Do you believe that the consciousness of our child selves, right, the theta, the creativity, intuitive side of our youth is fundamental in the solutions moving forward with our experience and consciousness as we expand and grow? Just
Absolutely. Really beautiful
awesome.
questions and perspective, and just the way you summed up what I've been trying to articulate and share tonight. Yeah, that's everything. I mean, that's everything. We want to understand the whole. We want to understand that our children are guiding the future and that they're perfect exactly as they are. That was a person that's sensitive, or who can't sit still in class does not deserve to be medicated or cast aside, or it's measured by grades. I mean, we have to really, focus on the fullness of all that we are and the differences and uniquenesses and different types of intelligence that we all have. Fitting into this box and grading people based on that is cutting out a huge portion of the population. And without acknowledging it, it can really backfire and isolate a person and cause a lot of issues. I mean, Neptune, um, it's very much, and just water signs, very connected to empathy and sensitivities and, the whole wheel, every sign, everything counts. And it's not even about having to understand that. It's just, some are made that way and it's a gift. And we don't want to cut out any part of that, or else we're not healing as a humanity. We're trying to fit people into boxes and everybody else finds their way, hopefully can pursue their dreams and visions. But I think there's going to be much more of an integration with the creativity and the healing tools and modalities, and that healing will be fun and integrative and exploratory, and it's geared towards self-discovery instead of diagnoses, labels, and drugs. So, and so many sensitives, empaths, and really creative beings that learn through their sensitivities and express through their innate knowledge and sensitivities, um, would be playing such a huge role. That's where the medicine, um when I say medicine, like shaman types and people that are gifted with these greater abilities, like people are coming in with so much past life knowledge too. It's like, the teachers need to sit down and step back and allow the child to guide them into their purpose, not the other way around.
Amazing. Thank you very much.
W, thank you so much. Andra, I'm really making sure you get to ask your question for self-preservation, because I know you're going to hound me in all the spaces if I don't. What do you say? Should we push this conspiratorial photo juxtaposition, this Eisenhower photo? Should we push it up to the nest?
No, don't do that.
Why not? It's
I
public.
appreciate it
I think
because I don't want you to.
Oh, is it a picture with him with an alien?
No, it is a
But
picture.
I will say this. This space has exceeded my hopes and expectations. I was so excited for
It's
this space,
exceeded
and
them.
Ulrich, yes. So thank you, Ulrich, for having this space. Laura, it has been such a pleasure listening to you. I want to ask you about some things. I want to ask you about manipulation of time around World War II and manipulation of time in very recent epochs of our sort of modern awareness, along the lines of resets, and why we don't have a continuity of our own very recent history. Certainly 1776 forward, we know very well there were things here when we got here, and we have no memory of this. The memory wipe seems eerily recent. What do we make of that?
Well, we just gotta dig deep. I mean, there are people that are on their deathbeds that are confessing things they couldn't talk about, or they'd be, killed or offed. I mean, there's information that's coming to the surface all the time. Dan Cooper is an amazing source of information, and not a whole lot of people really take what he has to say seriously because it's so different than what we've learned. And then you have timeline manipulation and their ability to kind of go back and tweak things, but then that goes against. Higher laws of creation. So temporal management and positive corrections are taking place in order to um, restore that timeline or keep an event from happening. Even Dan said that they murdered Eisenhower, that was, and then the newspaper disappeared. They were able to change, somehow that timeline got corrected and changed because they knew he was going to be a threat. They could already see. So the only thing that they could do is distort information, because then you get the humans to consent and then they go against somebody that actually was looking out for them. And then nobody's going to explore the countermeasures or some of these other things. But again, it doesn't have to come through him. It's going to come from our higher self. It's going to come from just our own, experience. So, I feel like we're time travelers. I feel like we can change the past, we can change the future in the way that we maneuver our perceptions around events that took place in our lives. The way we work with information that is presenting itself, we have to understand that it's not necessarily all on the same timeline, and there might be some bleed throughs or crossovers or things that are still being reset or repaired. But he said that it's all leading towards a correction, where there's been interference. Part of the accountability or the amnesty is them coming clean and finding a way out of society to preserve a reputation and not expose all of it, and also timeline correction. So I think it'd be great if you guys had him on the show about this particular topic. I'm not so good at it when it comes to the temporal management because he has direct experience. But, what I feel is many different possibilities have taken place, and we're not all necessarily going to have experienced it the same way. There are living survivors that still are sharing stories that you can see false narratives trying to crush. And they chose a time to spread these falsities when these individuals were dying out and there's only a few survivors left of different things that have happened in our history. Because their hope is that it'll be wiped from the next generation, that you can present a whole new history that they'll never even question. So, that whole burning the books and Alexander, this is not the first time this has kind of happened, but I could kind of roll into all these different tangents and things like that. But I think there's a lot more that should come to light about that particular question and topic. And I'm going to interview him soon, and I can make sure to kind of dive into that because he's got some really interesting things to say.
Excellent. I think you should come into spaces more, Laura.
I'd love to.
Yeah, I
Excellent.
second the motion.
Oh, cool.
All right,
I'd
it's
love
done.
to.
We love having you here, Laura. And I don't know if this is your first space, but we call the slide deck at the very top the nest, right above the profile icons. Do you see, are you able to see that where we can show posts?
Oh, yeah.
What do you think? Is Andra possibly related to you? She posted a picture of her high school photo.
Laura Eisenhower, and my senior high school photo. What the fuck?
One of those is you and one of those is Andra.
Right. I'm on the left.
I see. I keep on having a hard time telling the difference. We're going to have to put this up to a vote to see whether there could be any sort of relation. But I could not wait for the next space. I just had to do it. But I thought that was a striking resemblance.
Yeah, that's definitely a resemblance.
Andra, did you have a quick follow-up question? Because I want to make sure we have two more people. I want to make sure they can still get their questions in.
No, I think that was probably all. If I have another question, I will ask her telepathically.
All right, wonderful.
Oh gosh.
Is everything okay, Laura?
Oh yeah, for sure. I was just preparing for the telepathic question, and
Oh,
yeah, like after 8 tonight for sure. Like bring it, and I'll see what comes out. No, just kidding.
okay. So I want to be respectful of your time. Let's try to keep these questions brief. We have Gasp and then TJ after Gasp. Gasp, welcome to the Doom Room. What's your question for Laura?
Thank you, Doom. I appreciate it. Laura, I was just wondering out of pure personal curiosity if the Grada or Greda Treaty is accurate.
The original the original trade of humans for technology that originated in 1929. So after 1947, after the Second World War, which didn't really end, Project Paperclip, the
Oh,
unconditional surrender instrument,
he
it
sat
was
down on the bench.
it was not Eisenhower
We
that
have 2 more
signed.
questions left. 2 more
Um,
questions left.
okay, are you guys hearing me?
Yep, I
So,
can.
the Garada Treaty, as far as Dan Cooper's concerned, and Alex Collier and other kind of insider types, that is a total psyop to distract people away from where where the deep state is. That's why it's called the shadow government. It hides in the shadows. And so there's interviews of this man on his deathbed saying that Eisenhower was infuriated and wanted to invade Area 51. Dan Cooper, different than the anonymous guy that Richard Dolan interviewed, said that Eisenhower ordered an invasion on Dulce underground base in 1954. But we don't hear about that. So he tried to take out the Greys. And then I said to him, well, did they have to negotiate something because he couldn't take them out? And he's like, no, it was not legally allowed. All that went 30 levels of top secret above the president. But they spent a lot of money to create this psyop so that people would point the blame at them and not the shadow government. Well, those days are pretty much over. It's just those stories, though, are spreading like wildfire. And the evidence that I have and the information I have, um, they 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 took down my channel right away when I started sharing about that. So that kind of
I'm sorry
shows.
to hear that. I have complete faith in you, and I believe you entirely.
Oh, thank you.
One last quick question. For your own personal evolution regarding consciousness, do you have any practices or supplement suggestions or anything in that realm that increase consciousness, so to speak?
Oh, good question. When I find myself getting a little bit, I guess, cluttered in my space, just in the way I feel, I usually just, intermittently fast. I'll just do a lot of green food and just really clear out my system, take a break from everything and just go into nature, hang out with animals, really allow like nature to speak to me, just look for just, a chance to just feel myself and connect with myself. Um, Staying creative when I feel like really anxious, um, it like helps me to see that that's probably where the anxiety is that if I bottle it up and I don't share it, then I'm missing out on maybe a download or something that wants to flow through. When I'm emotional, I make sure I give myself a chance to cry. I just kind of see us as elemental beings, and nature is the greatest teacher. And so the more I connect with nature, the more I give myself permission to flow with the elements as they arise. Like if I have anger, I want to create action about something I'm passionate about instead of allow it to fester and stir and impact me. So being somebody that has tendencies towards addiction, I just replace it. I'm like, okay, instead of getting the thing that usually makes me feel off or worse, or I'm just gonna treat myself to something that is so much more healthy. So I take a lot of like mushroom powders and I just put is the best quality stuff, in my body. But I think, yeah, taking breaks, having downtime, um, and yeah, just nurturing, relationships, being accountable to myself for things that I want to clear, things that I feel bad about, things that I might still loop on, and just be more in dialogue with that and more self compassion and self forgiveness for not handling stress very well in my life here and there. And just that kind of just keeps me clear. It's like, to me, it's like a garden, it just has to be tended to. Sometimes it's like, oh, I weeded so much the other day that I don't have much to do, or like doing dishes. But then there are days where like a week goes by and I'm like, oh man, I got a lot of clearing to do to hold the maintenance of a clear consciousness.
Oh, God bless you. And you've suggested some lovely practices there. One personal one stuck out to me regarding the therapeutic use of anger through creative expression. And you mentioned that you don't handle stress very well. May I suggest L-theanine or ashwagandha or
Oh
rhodiola
no, I take
rosea?
all that. I take
Oh,
every.
nice one. I was just going to say, just in case it'd help.
Oh no, thank you, thank you. Yeah, um, well, that's been sort of an issue. So that's like one thing I focus on most is just the nervous system because that's always been a tough one for me. But what was the first one you said?
Forgive me, I've got a knock at the door. What did you say, the first one?
Oh, and meditation, of course. Meditation, of course. And paying attention to my dreams. My dreams, I take a lot of things that help open my third eye. So I have really, really vivid and lucid dreams. So there's like blue lotus is a really good herb. But the first one you mentioned, I might
Did
be
you
out
say
of like,
Blue Lotus then?
yeah, blue lotus, the herb.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's I think we used that back in the day,
I think it
ancient
was
Greeks. Yeah.
L-theanine. Was it L-theanine?
Or L-theanine,
Yeah, yeah,
or
yeah, yeah. Okay, that's what I
forgive
thought
me,
you said.
L-theanine, rhodio rosea,
Yeah, oh
and
yeah, I got all those
ashwagandha.
blends. Yeah,
Nice
people should
one.
come over and shop in my bathroom. I've got like way too many supplements for all my
Yeah.
issues.
Talk about nootropics
But
expert.
I love the L-theanine. Yeah, actually, I had some chewables I had before the show, so I don't talk too fast.
Um,
Smart move. Bless you. I'm so sorry. I'm gonna have to leave, but I'll listen to the recording after because I've got a friend
Oh,
here.
you're so sweet.
So
Nice to meet you.
much love, Laura, and thank you, Doom, for letting me up. And God bless everyone. Peace.
yeah, you
Goodbye.
got it. And we have one last person up here. I'm surprised we even got through all of them. Do you have time for this last question, Laura?
Yeah, I'm just telling my person I'd just be a little bit late. It's fine.
Are you sure?
Oh, absolutely.
All right.
It's an easy one.
TJ, welcome to the Doom Room. I know we're your favorite space. Go ahead. What's your question for Laura?
Hey, thanks guys for having me up. I came in really late, so I'm sorry if you kind of talked about this earlier. But the Valiant Thor story is always like one of my favorite stories in ufology because there's like photos and documentation for it. And my question was, after Valiant Thor left and broke contact, did we ever regain contact with him and who he represented? Because like I feel like we're getting close to the end of the world and they might give it another try, or we've been in the dark with that species since.
Really great question. So there is a video that I just got, and I'll actually share it tonight or tomorrow on X. So if you guys are following me on X, I will post the video. And it's a recent story about somebody who's had contact that is a person that is in a pretty powerful position. Who kind of hid it and hadn't shared about it and now is breaking the story. So I'll share that a little bit later. So Val Thor remained in connection with this planet, but supposedly there's about 200 Venus ships that are stationed around the world, one including Lake Mead. They didn't like disappear. They just more started to move into more observer mode. Um, I guess from what I've heard, 'cause the Venusians, through other people, talk to me a lot, and I'm, with my discernment, I'm like, okay, all right, this resonates or doesn't. And there's some stuff there. There's some recent communications and my relationship with Valthor, but I, kind of like, consider it. I don't form too many fixed beliefs because I know there's some imposter versions, and I'm just careful. But I can feel the affinity in my heart and soul. I've known that being and the Venusians. But anyway, so they stayed, but are more in observant mode. What Eisenhower and Valthor did together in appealing to the Guardians set in motion something that they, I think, felt confident enough about to be more in the observer role. Even though, Stranger in the Pentagon and the Joint Chiefs of Staff and the deep state players, shut it all down and it made it look like the mission went dark. It really didn't, because the countermeasures are actually connected with what Eisenhower and Valthor uh, established. So, and that's to be taken, in whatever way that resonates. But it would be really cool to do a Q&A with Dan Cooper and anybody who's interested in like the Val Thor stuff to jump on and ask him direct questions because he knows all this stuff. So I wasn't there, so I can't like say like I absolutely 100% am sure about that. But it really, really makes sense, and he's given me all that information, and that's kind of where there was an entry point to me coming in, and but that's like whatever about that. But yeah, Valthor and the Venusians are still working with this planet, and they're helping to hold a frequency here. They're just not interacting as much, but there probably will more soon. And now that that story's broken, I think when we're looking at disclosure or some kind of positive contact, probably the best to really align with, I feel, is Valthor and the Venusians. And there are others as well too, but to be very wary of the Xenos, because there are imposter versions. And I was warned by some time traveler person about how to spot the differences and all these weird things that are going to come along where they're going to try and sabotage it through a false version. So
Um, my really briefly, and you don't have to go into it too much. Well, first of all, thank you for being so generous and even allowing yourself to be a little bit late. Dan Cooper, why is a physicist? Is it significant that he's a physicist, or is that just circumstantial?
he discovered the sixth, seventh, and eighth force, Tesla level technology. He understands the eighth force, which is connected to the Guardians. He was a paralegal working for the deep state with the threat of death for a really long time. And he also served in a 20 and back, and is relaying all the messages that he heard his Nazi commanders kind of brag about and talk about. He was a duelist sword fighter, and he won all these tournaments, and they granted him immunities, and also he never signed a non-disclosure agreement, so he's very, very protected. Actually, Ike's force, he said, rescued him a bunch of times. He's a very interesting character, and he's working on over unity generators and teaching them in schools, and he's really fascinating. So next interview, I don't know, what is your, I'd love to follow you back, and then I can kind of let you know or give you the replay, because I think we get into the subjects that you're asking about a lot.
I would love that. I think the UFO community is craving any physicists that are still alive that are working on over Unity tech. Um, yeah, I would love to. I would love to do that, Laura. And
Okay, excellent.
and I think you might already be following me, but you never know these days.
Well, I
Um,
will now. What's your name?
this is Doom. This is Doomer.
Oh,
I'm the host, Laura.
of course I'm following you. So I thought you were somebody else with a question. Oh my God, I'm sorry. I'm not
No,
looking at the
no, no,
screen.
and I'm sorry. I mean, like
Well, I'm like, his voice is very, well, now I realize it is the same voice. Okay.
and no, and I'm under the weather, so my voice is changing. But Laura, I just want to say thank you so much for being generous and answering all of the questions. And you have no idea how many dreams you fulfilled today.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, my phone was blowing up the second that you got into the space. So it's meant the world to us.
Well, it means the world to me, and I appreciate such a wonderful space. I feel so comfortable and like really happy with just your generosity and kindness and support and willingness to hear me. So thank you.
Of course. Fringe and Tiff, any last words?
Oh, thank you
Thank
so
you so
much,
much.
Laura.
Thank you both. Nice to connect. And we'll all be in touch. I look forward to what's ahead of us, and we're all sticking together. So,
And as we get to know each other and have more conversations, it'll be like so much more organic and it'll feel so much better. But I
oh,
appreciate your time so much. And you do have a lot of interesting things to share about. And we are the Doom Room, but we like the love and light side of the Doom too, because we are, regardless, we feel that we're going through a transition right now. And so all the voices are really important. And whether this is apocalyptic or it is just the next stage of humanity, like being together, the minds and the experiencers, all that. It's such a great thing to get together.
it really is, because there is so much on the other side of it. But doom is a part of the passage. We got to move through the shadow side and the darkness
Earth
of
is
it all to
violent.
get. Yeah, it's just a part of it. So I love it. It makes it easier to communicate, because it's like 'cause I can't do the love and light stuff all the time. No.
nobody can do it all the time, right?
But we
No,
can
If you
look
do it
because
forward
all
to
the
it. We can
time,
hope and pray for it, manifest it.
I volunteer to be the unicorn. Don't worry.
uh,
you you
well,
are
like the
already.
alchemy of it all, it's like there's both, and what rises out of the doom is our own creative power calling it all back. But we're in this shift. We have to move through it and not be in denial and not sugarcoat things. But yeah, but the unicorn, I never want to give up that.
We have to say what we do not stand for. And so that's the doom, is what we can no longer accept, for sure.
No, I love it.
Well,
Awesome,
Louis
you
Herms
guys.
for California. Louis Herms, California.
Oh yeah, for sure.
well, Laura and everybody who came up to ask questions, everybody you see on stage, even maybe not TJ, but everybody else you can absolutely follow. And if you like, you can also follow TJ and everybody who tunes in. Laura, it's been nothing but a pleasure. I didn't even have a chance to thank my co-hosts in the last space because we transitioned right over here. I had to throw Tiff and Fringe in an over Unity spaceship just to get them over to this space. Everybody, it is always the co-hosts who are doing the heavy lifting. Laura, thank you so much for coming into the Doom Room. And you may have noticed a little pun I did, but just remember, everybody, to always doom deep, doom dark, and doom Eisenhower. Thank you so much.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much. We'll all be in touch. Have a great rest of your night.
Thank you, Laura.
Thanks,
Thanks.
Laura.
Good night, everybody. Thank you so much for doing with us today.
Sweet dreams, everyone.
It was historic.